Hey guys, this is Curtis from Just Another Night, and today we're going to be talking about games consoles. So let's get into it. So for those of you that haven't been listening, about 2 weeks ago we released a podcast on the console wars. It was really interesting, so because of that I feel like I wanted to cover it again and give my own personal take on it. So before we get into it, remember to like, comment and subscribe. Make sure to check out the rest of the videos on the channel and be sure to share it with your friends. So this list is more so inspired by Toby. Instead of it being just a list of game consoles when they came out or they did, this is more of like a personal highlight reel of all the consoles that I've played and I've enjoyed. It doesn't include all of them, it's just like my favourite and the ones that I found most memorable. So I'll start this from more of a nostalgic point of view. The first game console that I ever played was the Sega Mega Drive. So the reason for this is it was the only console that was in my house because my sister owned one. So I remember being like 5 or 6 years old, sitting in her bedroom and playing games like the original Sonic the Hedgehogs. I think the first favourite one that I had was Altered Beast, which was a very, very weird game. You just ran around fighting people. This was back in the day of everything being a side-scroller, but it was interesting. I think if you get a chance, the Sega Mega Drive collection is available on most platforms. I think it's PC. I know it was on 360 and PS3. I'm not sure about Xbox One and PlayStation 4. But if it is there, I recommend going and checking it out, especially if you're into retro games. As a whole, the console was very, robust. It was quite large. The only issue that I really had with it was the games, but it was back in the day when all games were, on massive cartridges. I feel like they just broke quite easily, but it could have been because I was 5 or 6 and I wasn't really capable of looking after things properly. But other than that, it was great. The controllers were so weird, it's brilliant. So the next console on my list is the Nintendo GameCube. So this was just a small purple box that you could play games on. It came with a handle, it was amazing. If you look at all the consoles recently and the sizes of them, they are all still getting a lot smaller and smaller. If you look at stuff like the PSP, the Nintendo Switch, all of these handheld consoles, and it's just incredible that they can put all of this into such a small thing. I feel like the GameCube was the first proper representation of this. It wasn't portable, it was just so tiny and so robust, it was brilliant. As a whole, the console wasn't really anything special, but the controller that it had was incredible. It had 2 different sized analog sticks for some reason. I can't for the life of me work out why. But the game discs were half the size of normal discs, which I still to this day find really confusing and I don't really understand why, if that makes sense. But I remember playing Super Smash Bros. Brawl and Pokemon Colosseum so much. I still use a GameCube controller whenever I play Super Smash Bros. Ultimate on my Switch, but I feel like it's a lot better graphically, but I feel like the fun isn't quite there. It's not as nostalgic, it's not as interesting to play. So the next game on my list is the original Xbox. This is mainly there because I think this was the first console that I bought for myself, so it's quite a momentous thing for me. But the controller on it was really weird. I was never really a big fan. I'm happy that they kind of slimmed it down and sorted it out for the 360 and the Xbox One. A lot of the games that were available on the Xbox original were very similar to the ones that were available on the PS2, so they were quite interchangeable, but obviously they were still exclusive games. So the reason why I had chosen Xbox over PlayStation was because of Halo. So I remember being with my childhood friends and we'd have LAN parties where we just sit down and play Halo 2, which was so fun. It was also the first console that I ever got to play one of the Elder Scrolls games. The first game that I played from Elder Scrolls was Morrowind, and for anyone that follows the podcast, or I'm not sure I've mentioned it too much on YouTube, you'll know that I'm a massive fan of the Elder Scrolls and the whole of the community surrounding Bethesda, apart from Fallout 76. Personally, I feel this generation of games was it was underrated. You had the original Halo, you had Conkers, which was just so funny. You ran around as a squirrel that just didn't care and wanted to kill everyone. You had games like Black, the original Star Wars Battlefronts before EA ruined it. Like, there were so many good games on this generation. Simpsons Hit and Run, we're still waiting for a remaster on that. Like, it was such a good generation of games, and the console was so great for what it was, especially considering, like, the time of it. Now, the next one on my list is kind of like, it's a fleeting console. This came out, and I remember one Christmas, everybody got it, everybody was playing it, and this is the Nintendo Wii. So, although my time with the Nintendo Wii was very short-lived, I think I only played it for like 3 months before I got bored and moved on to the next games console. But I just remember it being so much fun and getting so much enjoyment out of it. Like, just simple games like Wii Sports, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. Like, they were just very family-friendly games that you could sit there and just play with your friends, your family, and everyone would kind of have a good time. It was the first proper, like, integration of motion controls as well, which was brilliant. Like, the way that they pulled it off was fantastic. The motion sensors on the Nintendo Wii was probably the biggest thing for most people. The only problem with this is if you were trying to play AAA titles, like I remember playing Call of Duty on it, and it was so difficult. Unless you were using like a normal controller, it was really, really hard to try and kind of just move about. Like, you'd have to use the nunchuck and the Wii remote, and it was so difficult. I wouldn't recommend it. But for all the games that required the motion sensors, like all of the sports games, there was a game called Trauma Center, which was basically you were a surgeon. That game was really fun. But I think any of the things where you had to like actually walk around and do stuff was really difficult to play on the Wii, and probably would have been better off on any other console that was out in that generation, such as the 360 or the PS3. But this is also the first console where I ever got a Guitar Hero game. I remember getting Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Rock, and that's where I fell in love with that franchise, and it was honestly just incredible. So for me, my primary game console would probably have to be my Xbox 360. This is the console that I spent the most time on, and this was mainly just because of the age that I was at when the 360 came out. So when this came out, I was a teenager. I spent an awful lot of time growing up sitting in my room playing games, like a lot of people do nowadays. Obviously, I've always had a large love for the Xbox franchise. Like, I still play my Xbox One all the time. I still occasionally play my Xbox 360, and I still have my original Xbox sat in my wardrobe, just collecting dust. But I feel like for me, this was kind of where I really got into gaming. This is where I really enjoyed it. I remember playing Call of Duty for the first time. Call of Duty 4, playing on the multiplayer, I used to love it so much. Like, I still miss it to this day. Even though they've done a remaster of Call of Duty 4, I feel like it's not the same. Like, the nostalgia doesn't quite hold up. So when it comes to the console wars, it's a very interesting topic. If you listen to the podcast, I'll have it linked down below in the description. You'll be able to understand more of what I'm saying. But, like, even in our group, in Just Another Night, I prefer Xbox, Toby prefers Xbox, and then Idris prefers PlayStation. This isn't a problem. Like, none of us really mind, because we can all still play with each other on certain games, and we all still own both consoles, so we can kind of mix and match when necessary. But it's important for people to understand that one console is not necessarily better than the other. You should choose your console based on the interface and the exclusive games that are available on that platform that you personally want to play. For this current generation of console, I chose the Xbox One first, and the reason for this was because of Halo and Gears of War. These are the two franchises that I kind of fell in love with as a kid and wanted to carry on playing. But when it comes to the next generation, I don't know which one I'm going to pick. It's probably going to be the Xbox Series X, and the reason for that is just because Halo Infinite looks sick, and I'm a real big fan of Halo. But I can understand why other people would think differently. I just don't understand why people feel the need to kind of insult another console. Like, people that are die-hard PlayStation fans hate the Xbox, and then die-hard Xbox fans hate the PlayStation. There are good aspects to both, and that needs to be remembered, and it needs to kind of show. So that's all we have time for today. Make sure to head down into the comments. Let us know which your preferred console is. Why? Are you one of these die-hard fans, or are you more open to suggestions? Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help us out, and make sure to tune in for the rest of the week to see what everyone else has to say. Good game.